Hello, everyone. This is Michael O'Shea from New Leaders Council. I am the outgoing recruitment chair, and I'm joined today by two of our incoming recruitment chairs, Connor and Satya. Today's webinar is an introduction to New Leaders Council and an overview of the application process to become a fellow with the NLC Institute here in Boston. We're excited to have you here wherever you're tuning in from. For those who are listening after the fact, we're so glad you found time to listen in. Without further ado, I will turn it over to one of our incoming recruitment chairs, Satya.
Hi, my name is Satya. I'm originally from Hope Mills, North Carolina. I'm currently the political manager at Mass Equality with my professional interest in legislative advocacy and electoral politics. You can find some of my favorite activities besides NLC, and I think my NLC highlight was definitely having conversations on defining progressive values. I'll take you through what the NLC Institute experience is like, but right now I'll turn it over to Connor.
Hey everybody, my name is Connor Wakayama. I'm a member of the NLC Boston class of this year, and I'm also a new incoming recruitment co-chair. Just a little bit about myself. I grew up in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I've been living in Boston for the past 3 years. And I work at an organization that collaborates with companies to help them adopt more inclusive hiring strategies to bring young people into quality jobs. I'm sure, like a lot of people on the webinar, I first heard about NLC through folks in my network who encouraged me to look into it and apply. And so if you're considering applying, I'm really glad that you took the advice of those people who care a lot about your leadership development. So before applying to NLC, what I was hoping to get out of the program was a community of people who were also engaged in work to create progressive change here in Boston. And also just to have more, but both a time and a space for myself to focus on my own leadership development and self-improvement. And I can happily say that I got both of those out of my NLC experience. And that's why I decided to become a member of the board this year, so I could help recruit other emerging leaders into this great community. So Mike already shared a little bit about New Leaders Council, but I'll just give you the overview again. So New Leaders Council is an organization that has been around for more than a decade. And the mission of the organization is to provide young progressive leaders with a leadership development experience and the opportunity to connect with others who are interested in building in progressive infrastructure through training and ongoing engagement. New Leaders Council has 50 chapters currently across the United States and nearly 7,000 alumni. And this long list of chapters across the country indicates that when you're applying to New Leaders Council and becoming a fellow, you're really gaining access not just to the NLC community here in Boston, but also to a group of progressive leaders across the country that you can get in contact with if ever you move or are visiting a place and want to meet other folks there that are involved in great work. So this just gives a sense of a few more of the metrics that New Leaders Council can attest to. So through the NLC Institute, which Satya and Mike and I are all alumni of, over 900 progressive leaders have gone through that experience. Over the course of NLC's existence, we've had over 26 alumni get elected to public office. And actually, this is something that pretty recently showed up in the news. Earlier this year, there was a Time magazine cover of women that were either running or had recently been elected to public office. And 2 New Leaders Council alumni were on the cover of that magazine. So that just goes to show that, truly New Leaders Council is bringing in great people who are inspired and motivated to do great things. And getting elected to public office is only one of those ways that they go on to lead. And then lastly, there's also a whole bunch of opportunities for folks to be involved in the NLC community after graduating from the Institute. And Satya will touch on those in just a little bit. So just to give an overview of the NLC experience from the time that you get accepted and begin the NLC Institute through the various alumni opportunities that there are. So NLC Institute is really the core of the experience. Satya will dig into that in just a moment, but really that is an experience that takes place over the course of 6 months in the spring. Here in Boston, it consists of advanced leadership training. You get paired with a mentor who can provide you with support throughout your leadership development. And then there are different ways to be involved with the NLC community as that's going on. After graduating from the Institute, there is a whole array of opportunities for folks to stay involved, both by, for example, as we've done by joining the board, having access to this great network that you could reach out to get support for whatever kind of progressive work that you may be doing. And then also just by going to certain milestone events like the NLC retreat, various conferences, and other events that get planned here locally. Then lastly, there are other opportunities to stay involved as alumni at the national level. And those include the New Leader, which is a publication that gets put out by New Leaders Council alumni across the country. And there's also a Millennial policy platform that New Leaders Council alumni and leaders have gone on to develop. And there's a whole bunch of opportunities to stay involved with that as well. So right now, I'm going to pass the mic over to Satya, who's going to give just a deeper look into the NLC Institute experience and what you can expect through the application process.
Thank you, Connor, for that. So the NLC Institute is the nation's premier leadership and political entrepreneurship training program for young professionals. On average, there are about 65 applicants, and it's been increasing every year. It's highly selective, and only about 15 to 20 fellows are accepted to each program, so it is prestigious. Below are the dates for NLC Institute. The first weekend is going to be the weekend that fellows center themselves and think about what is important for their goal setting and what they want to get out of the Institute. As you can see, there are other topics for the other Institute dates. And the last date is tentative for June 12th. It's the fundraiser and graduation, which we'll get into more in this presentation. So fellows must be present for the initial January 26-27 weekend. And so this is, again, where there's goal setting and fellows get used to the Institute experience. And it is the foundation for the rest of Institute. Our attendance policy is that you can miss no more than 16 hours if necessary due to extenuating circumstances. The fellows should be prepared to engage with others in the group and with themselves while they're doing the Institute. It is very interactive and it causes a lot of introspection, as I experience myself. Fellows are also encouraged to invest in building relationships with each other outside of Institute sessions, which will be a natural occurrence because everybody gets to know each other during Institute and realizes that there's an intersection between different fields. So NLC fellows work together to achieve two very specific goals. The first one is a chapter fellows fundraiser, and it is one where all fellows will work together to raise the funds for the next class of fellows. And it's something that will be talked about at length during Institute. The second one is every individual will have a capstone, and you'll work together in 3 to 4 member lead groups. This is a small group where you'll work together and provide feedback and develop your ideas for a capstone that is meaningful to your career or professional and personal growth. So, what is NLC looking for in an applicant? And it's not limited to just this, but these are some of the qualities in an applicant that NLC is looking for. It's someone who's serious and wants to build progressive infrastructure in their career or adjacent to their career. Having executive potential, meaning being able to lead and wanting to lead. I think that's important to note. Also, having an entrepreneurial spirit, so wanting to take risks to pursue opportunity. And these are things that you'll talk about in Institute to see how that fits into the career that you're currently in, or how you can find personal connections to do so. Also, one of the most important things is a team orientation, confidence, and humility. You'll be in a group of individuals who are very different from yourself, and being able to work together is an important quality for NLC. So here are the most important application dates to be looking for. October 1st is when applications close. Applications are currently open. So if you are interested by what you hear tonight, please open your application and start. Mid-October, applicants will be notified if they're moving on to the interview stage. Late October, you'll have an in-person interview with individuals from NLC, probably people who have gone through the class in the past few years. In mid-November, applicants will be notified if they've been offered a seat. And then on December 1st, there's a deadline to accept and fill out the intake form. And then in December or January, you can expect to meet other fellows at a mixer. So we encourage you to start your online application at the link provided and let us know if you have any questions.
So it looks like our first question is coming in. So the question that was written is, what advice do you have for a potential applicant? So if I think back to my process for putting together an application, I really, the first thing or first advice I would give, probably not novel advice for most people that have applied to things, is just start early, because you probably do not want to leave writing the application to the end. But the part, what the application consists of, and at least the most substantial part of it, is a series of essay questions that fellows or applicants are asked to reflect on and then write answers to. So the best advice I could give would probably be to just create a real intentional space for that self-reflection, so you're able to very seriously consider the ways that you would like to grow throughout the experience, and the things that you've done in the past that relate most closely to NLC, and what and the ways that you'd like to engage with fellows. I'd say other advice that I would give is that when you're putting together the application, think about the ways or the assets and the skills that you can bring to the cohort, so that ideally your NLC Institute experience is not just a way that you're growing yourself, but also how you're helping to move the community of fellows forward as progressives.
So the next question we have is, tell me more about the capstone. I think this is the $1 million question that all fellows will ask themselves throughout Institute. The capstone is an individual project that you develop in collaboration with your fellows that are in your lead group. So you'll be in a small group of about 3 to 4 fellows, and you'll have a chance on that first January weekend to think about what you want to get out of Institute. And this can be personal or professional. I know in my time at Institute, I saw both of those things happen. You'll work with your lead group to brainstorm ideas, gain support, and then figure out what resources you'll need. You'll also be assigned a mentor by the board that is aligned with your professional experiences, and if you request it, with your personal experiences. And the capstone can be as creative as doing an art demonstration, or it can be something as concrete as working on a presentation for your job, something that you've been wanting to work on but haven't taken the time to reflect on and think about in a really creative way. So the capstone is up to interpretation by the fellow, and it just provides a structure for fellows to think about what they want to achieve in their professional or personal lives. For me, I knew I wanted to make a transition from the job that I was in, so my capstone was to look for a new job, and I was able to take the time to think about what I wanted to do. And my fellows who are in my lead group helped me think about what I was looking for in a job, the questions I needed to ask my interviewers, and they helped me prep for interview questions.
The next question that we had is, how has NLC shaped your future plans? I think this came up different ways for different individuals in the group. So there was one person in our cohort who is currently running for office. And so for her, NLC really was an opportunity to gain the support and the time that she needed to reflect on how to most effectively run her campaign. So that was something that was very concrete. I think for myself, is maybe a little bit less concrete, but I think equally valuable. For me, NLC helped me think more about how I wanted to be involved in my own community here in Boston, and how I would be connecting with others to create the change that I wanted to see, not just in my job, but also more specifically in my community, and with the other young folks that had gone through the program.
So our next question is, what kind of topics were covered during Institute, and what was the most memorable or valuable session? So I'll actually go back to the slide that brings up the different weekends. So, for example, in the first weekend is this lead, enterprise, advocate, and develop. So this is also known as the life entrepreneurship weekend. And this is where we did a lot of goal setting, and we did introspection and where we were and where we wanted to go. The other topics are communications, finance, political management, progressive policy. So, for example, in our communications weekend, we had someone who is actually the communications director for the governor's office, and they gave us very practical ways of addressing media and talking to press, down to even talking about what should we do with our hands when we're on TV, and things that we don't really think about. In fundraising, we talked about very practical ways that we do fundraising, and because NLC brings in individuals from different sectors, some people might have experience with this, others might not. And so not only is the presenter helping you understand some of these basic concepts, but you'll actually draw on from what your fellows know as well and their lived experience with a lot of these issues. And then we also have progressive policy. And so in this weekend, we had someone who came in and talked to us about the Janus case. And so we learned more about what was happening at the labor level. And for some people in the room, they didn't really know what was happening, and some people did know what was happening. And so it just brings awareness and then a deeper, more meaningful conversation. For me, I think the most memorable session was actually the communications. I think we think a lot about what people are saying in the media, but we don't really think about how to be smart about communicating with press. So that was really striking to me, and I actually use it in my career now.
So the next question that we had is, what was the toughest part or biggest challenge of Institute? I think I'll have to reflect on that. I think, well, just one thing that is more of a practical piece and that I think fellows should be aware of is that Institute is a serious time commitment. It takes place on the weekends over the course of 5 months, as we said before. And so I'd say for some of us, the hardest part could have just been getting up fairly early in the morning on a Saturday to bring ourselves to the Institute. What I can say, though, is that after arriving to Institute and after going through both the Saturday and the Sunday session, I really felt that it was worth my getting out of bed in the morning, and that just getting to sit in a room and be with folks who are all passionate about both bettering themselves and about furthering progressive community. That was truly worth my time on the weekends. And though in some ways I felt, that it was a good investment of energy on the weekends, I also felt that I left on Sunday feeling perhaps more energized than when I was waking up on Saturday to go through the session.
All right, so our next question is, what was your cohort like? I think we were pretty amazing, Connor. I mean, Connor and I were both in the same cohort. We just had so many different experiences. I think in the beginning, NLC probably drew a specific crowd, people who are interested in policy and politics, and individuals who are squarely living in that world. And I have to say, in our institute, class, I think there were only a handful of us out of the 15 to 20 who actually did policy and politics for a job. We had people who are in the private sector. We had individuals who did nonprofit work and fundraising. There was definitely diversity of the cohort, which is an experience that I have not had in a long time. 75% of the people in the room were of color, which is a room that I just thoroughly enjoyed sitting in because I knew that when I went to my day job, that was just not the experience I was going to have. It creates a safe environment, so you feel like you can talk about those things that you can't talk about when you're living your day-to-day job. We also had diversity in gender identity and sexual orientation, as well as it was a majority female in who identified as female in our cohort. So I think that for 6 months, I knew that one weekend a month I was going to be in a room with people who understood who I was, and I didn't have to explain so many things about my life and my lived experience because they just got it. And it was always sad to go back to work on Monday.
So someone asked the question, how old do I have to be to do NLC? That's a great question. But the answer that I would give is, I think, a hopeful one for most folks. It's a pretty broad range of ages of people that go through the experience. So I would say for our cohort, the youngest person in the room was probably in their early 20s, generally speaking. But on the upper end, it got up probably to the mid 30s. So it's a range of about 15 to 20 years. I think the benefit of having such a broad age range is that you have just folks coming to the experience from different levels of what they've learned in the past and what and the ways that they're hoping to grow. And also you have a mix of people both with experience and optimism to create different kinds of change.
Oh, all right. So our next question is, I'm not in Boston. Can I apply? So as Connor said, there are 50 chapters across the United States. So if you are in any of these locations, please look for a chapter near you.
Well, thanks everyone. That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks to our co-hosts, Connor and Satya. Feel free to reach out to us on social media, Twitter, Facebook, email. We're always happy to hear from you. And we hope to see your application in the email this October. Thanks everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.